and welcome to the Movie Scoops podcast. I'm your host Sean, and today we have some news. We have some news. Yes, praise the Lord Almighty. We actually have news this week because it's always going to be news, but the real thing is it going to be good news in the movie community? Probably not, but at least we have some news to talk about. We have news about comics, TV shows, movies, and whatnot. We have some reviews later in the episode. You know, bad times call for bad movies. That's a good thing, so check out that. And when it comes to, I'm also doing a Q&A in this podcast. I asked you guys on Instagram if you would give me some questions, and you guys delivered, so that we'll have that later. But first, we got to get into the news. All right, let's get straight into that. There is a rumor that Marvel Studios' Blade movie may come reportedly slotted for October 2022. Now, when this got announced at Comic-Con 2019, which we'll get into news about that in a second, Blade was announced, but it didn't announce in a time slot, didn't announce in a day, didn't announce anything to do with it except for, hey, we got Blade in the MCU, this is great, we've got Mahershala Ali playing Blade. That's about it. That's all we get, which is quite good. We get a little bit of a teaser. We don't get too much information, even though we want all of the information, but we got none. Now, this film, this Wesley Snipes played Blade in 2 good movies and then 1 atrociously bad one. I'm excited to see this movie, and the fact that it's reportedly been slotted in for 2022, that just makes me more excited for 2022, since every other good Marvel movie has been taken away from us here in 2020. Thank you, coronavirus. You are a gem. But yeah, I'm just really excited for this movie. I think Mahershala Ali is a great actor. I think he will do a great job in this role, and I'm excited to see what he does with it. Let's move on. Tron Legacy sequel could happen. Director Joseph Kosinski. Sorry if I pronounce names. We all should know on here now that I do not know how to pronounce last names properly or first names. I'm just like that. I'm just an idiot. We're going to keep going. And believes that the franchise is worthy for another entry. Now, the Tron movies have had 2 movies, which a lot of viewers wouldn't actually be able to guess, since the only well-known one was the one made in 2010. I think it was made in 2010. I'm gonna check. I'm gonna check right now. Tron Legacy, and it came out in 2010. I was right, 2010, and it was the sequel. It was the sequel to the 1982 movie Tron, and I thought it was a good movie, very fun. I was pretty young then, not as much of a movie critic as I am now, but I loved that movie. I thought it was a really, really fun movie, and I would love to see a sequel to it. And the fact that a few weeks ago it actually got a cancelled spin-off movie series, that it got cancelled, and the fact that it said it could happen, that makes me really excited. Let's move on. Black Adam to shoot at the end of the summer. Now, this is America that we're talking about. So, if you're Australian and you're listening to this, it's going to be at the end of our winter. That's what happens. Their summer is our winter, and our winter is their summer. And that's just how it is, and that's how it's going to be. So, when they say here it's the end of the summer, that's August. That's exciting. Honestly, it's probably not going to happen, obviously, with the whole climate right now. It's probably not going to happen. It's probably not going to start filming at that point. But The Rock, it came from actually The Rock. The Rock says that the plan says that's the plan, but it may get pushed to August or September, which is what I said it should be filmed at. But who am I? I'm just an idiot doing a podcast. Let's move on. More Disney films have been pushed back. Soul got moved to November the 20th, and Raya the Last Dragon moved to March 2021. We went through last week, and if you didn't listen last week, definitely go check out last week's podcast. It will be worth it. What am I talking about? It's not going to be worth it. You're just going to be wasting an hour. That's pretty bad. You're going to watch it, and I'm going to tell you to watch it. And I don't know where this went to. But last week we talked about the different time slots in which all of the major film companies had moved their movies to. And they've added to that list now. So why don't we just move on? Boom Studios Inc. has started a deal with Netflix and has started a 2-year deal for live action and animated series. Now, I'm actually just going to Google this company real quick because I've never heard of it, but it seems to be really, really big if it's going to be on this news website. And Boom, hard to type with one hand. Boom Studios. What have you made, Boom Studios? Nothing, as far as I can see. Boom Studios Inc. Yeah, I'm wasting a lot of time here, but Boom Studios Inc. Nothing. Well, I'd love to see what they do with that, but let's move on. That was a bit embarrassing, but that's exactly what this podcast is. Embarrassing. The Dune movie. Now, we saw some snippets of Dune the other day. We saw Oscar Isaac in what looks like the most awesome-looking Deathstroke suit ever, even though this isn't a DC movie. He would play a great Deathstroke. But it's still set on track to come out December 18th for its release. Let's just hope that it comes out then, because otherwise my sanity will be gone by then, because all of the movies that I wanted to see have been delayed. And we had, this has just been a running thing, and it'll probably still be a running thing until this pandemic is over. But I'm just going to keep complaining about movies being delayed, even though I do understand why they are being delayed. It doesn't make me happy. And I feel pretty, oh so pretty, and I don't feel pretty right now. Let's move on. John Krasinski has reportedly met with Marvel Studios for the upcoming MCU project, which I think will be the Fantastic Four. We watched the entire series of the Fantastic Four, all 4 films. Yes, you heard me right, 4. Go listen to that podcast. It's called Once Upon a Time in the Fantastic Four. We talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and we talk about the Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four 94, Fantastic Four 2005, and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer and Fantastic. All mediocre to bad movies. But I've repeatedly said since probably the first one of these podcasts that I've wanted John Krasinski to play Mr. Fantastic. He looks like the character from the comics, and that's exactly what Marvel Studios do. They look for good actors, but then they also look for actors that would play the role that they are trying to fill to the best degree. That's why we have people like Robert Downey Jr. playing Tony Stark, why we have Chris Evans playing Captain America, why we have Chris Hemsworth playing Thor, why we have Nick Fury playing Samuel Jackson playing Nick Fury. This is just like such a good character for John Krasinski, and his wife Emily Blunt would play Sue Storm to the maximum amount of effort, and I think it will be perfect, and I think it will just be such a fun movie, which is what the Fantastic Four is. It's a fun movie series. Not movie series, comic series. It's lighthearted, it's family friendly, it's comedy. It's the first superhero family, and the fact that they haven't been able to make a good Fantastic Four movie out of their 4 attempts makes me sad, especially when Fantastic had so much going for it, like a good first come director, a somewhat good cast, and what seemed like some good storytelling, and it went straight to the crapper. We're going to move on. Sam Raimi confirms that he is the director of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I don't know, I've been watching a lot of UFC in the past week, so I've been really bored, obviously, because I've had to move to that. But it's mostly because I watched that 70s show, the entire thing, and I am dead. But I'm just so excited. I said before, when he was rumored to play the director, he would be so good. And he said in a quote here that He said the quote. This is what the page says. Raimi says it was a big coincidence that he had Doctor Strange Nod in Spider-Man 2. I wish we had the foresight to know that I was going to be involved in that project. I'm just so excited that he is playing this role. Not playing this role. He is being the director of this movie. I think he is an amazing director, and especially when this movie is meant to be the first Marvel horror whatnot movie. Sam Raimi is a horror director as well. He made the Evil Dead franchise. He did every single thing in the Evil Dead franchise apart from the TV show, but he was a producer on the TV show. He directed some episodes. He is just a great director. Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, not Spider-Man 3, but everything else he has made has just been fantastic. You have no idea how excited I was when I read this, because Sam Raimi is just great. He's a great director, and I think he will do well as the director of this movie. And obviously, you got to get Bruce Campbell in there. If you guys haven't seen a Sam Raimi movie, he always figures out a way to get Bruce Campbell in there. If you don't know who Bruce Campbell is, Google him. You will know him. He has been in lots of movies. He was in Sky High. He was in every single Spider-Man. And he's just been in lots of things. He is amazing. Let's move on. Okay, we talked about this some more last week. So Amber Heard, she played Mera in Aquaman. Actually, pretty well. She played it really well. She could face up to 3 years in prison for fake evidence against Johnny Depp. So what had happened was Johnny Depp and Amber Heard were married. They were married, and she went to the police with domestic charges, not a violation. Sorry, she had tried to divorce him to do with domestic violence, and they went to court, in which she falsified evidence against Johnny Depp, which was fake evidence, for those of you who don't know what falsify means, and it only came to light now. This was a few years ago. This was like 2017, and she's in lots of trouble right now. She could face up to 3 years in prison. Like, that's not good. That's not a good time. That's not a good time for you to be in. But nonetheless, I wouldn't be who I am without showing a actress some love and just saying that I think that she was great in Aquaman, even though the movie wasn't as good. I feel like it was better than other DC projects like Justice League. But nonetheless, as a person who abides by the law and loves the law, there's nothing really else to say. I hope that you're okay, and I hope that justice is served. And yeah, let's move on. Don't know what that segment was. Let's move on. So the Snyder Cut, more Snyder Cut news. Not news, pretty much just Zack Snyder posting what looks like a really, really cool not shot list, the drawings that he had made for Man of Steel. Like, it just shows like some really not very, very talented drawing on Zack Snyder's part. I'm going to judge him on that. But like, you could clearly see what he was going for in Man of Steel, and I think it's just really cool that he would share something like that on his Twitter. I've said before, I said last week, he's one of the greatest directors in my opinion. I'm very biased because I love his work. But what had happened to him was just so sad. And I feel like that if any other director was in that shoes, like, they would be in the same situation as him. But let's move on. Amy Pascal has confirmed that Spider-Man 3 will have the word home in the title. Well, this is a given. So I guess Spider-Man Serenity is not happening, which is what we speculated on a few months ago. So home. There's lots of let's play a little game here. So if you guys know my Instagram, the Movie Scoots Podcast, definitely follow it, and then send me like a private message and just tell me what do you think the movie's gonna be called. It has to have home in it, so it could be Spider-Man Homeschooled, Spider-Man Home Alone, Like, there's lots of things. Like, I know Home Alone is the, like, very out there, probably would never be a thing, but, like, I'm going to look in the comments of this and just see what some people are thinking. Like, there's one here that's like, no home is home. Spider-Man Home Alone. Spider-Man Home Quarantined. Spider-Man Homebound. And Spider-Man Journey to Home. Spider-Man Stuck at Home. There's lots of things that can go into that series, because obviously there's Spider-Man Homecoming, which was him going to the homecoming dance, Spider-Man Far From Home, which was him going overseas, and I'm just excited to see what happens. Let's move on. Ryan Reynolds sent a video this week of the behind the scenes video of Brad Pitt in his little cameo in Deadpool 2, which I thought was hilarious. If you guys haven't seen Deadpool 2, pretty much what happened was they had this like anti-hero. Like, the whole point of Deadpool 2 was to bring the group, the X-Force, into movies. So the X-Force is like the X-Men, but like anti-heroes. Like, they're not afraid to kill people. But what had happened was they had like a whole bunch of people in there, including a guy called the Vanisher. And the X-Force jumped out of the plane, and all of them died in the worst ways possible. Like, one got landed on like a bus and it was driving, got hit and killed. One got chopped up into a helicopter. One got thrown into a wood chipper. And the funniest one was the Vanisher, who is just a guy who's invisible, was like in a parachute, and he came down and he landed on a electrical wire, which when he came visible, it was Brad Pitt. It was Brad Pitt, and he died. So I just thought that was a really funny nod to him, and the fact that Brad Pitt even came in for that it's just hilarious. Let's move on. J.J. Abrams is developing a Justice League Dark series as a spin-off of his Shining, as well as a spin-off of The Shining for HBO Max. I am so excited. For those, I always have to say this. For those of you who don't know Justice League Dark, it's a pretty obscure comic book series about the mystic arts of comic books. So, like Dr. Fate, John Constantine, Zatanna, all those kinds of people, and it's all about them. And like there's a really good animated movie called Justice League Dark, and it has that idea of that in a movie. Definitely go check that out. Very good movie. I like it. I'm really excited. I hope they keep the same actor who plays John Constantine. Pretty much they've had the same actor who played John Constantine in the John Constantine TV show, Arrow, Flash, DC Legends of Tomorrow, all of the animated projects to do with him. And yeah, like, I'm just excited for that. Let's move on. Cyberpunk 2077 Xbox X revealed. Now, obviously you guys can't see this, but what it says on here for the description is that it has a glow-in-the-dark masking, custom panels, laser etching, and custom controller, and it looks like it has like a gold yellow outer rim. It looks really sick, but like that game hasn't come out and doesn't look like it's going to come out for a while, so let's move on. San Diego Comic-Con has been cancelled. Oh my gosh, like, everything just makes me sad. Like, first of all, like, the first Comic-Con got cancelled a few months ago because of the coronavirus, and now, in the first time in its 50-year history, San Diego Comic-Con has been cancelled. There will be no San Diego Comic-Con this year, and the convention will instead return July 22nd to July 25th, 2021, and the WonderCon Anaheim has also been cancelled and will return to the convention. Attendees and expeditioners can request refunds or transfers to their badges next year. Obviously, I just read that from a post, but that just makes me so sad. Like, I was really excited for Comic-Con this year, obviously because of Hall H, and they'll talk about the upcoming Marvel projects, even though there's not going to be any new Marvel projects for the next few years. It makes me really sad. And I've already addressed how sad I am about this, but there's nothing we can do unless we self-isolate and help this virus go away. But it's always just going to be a sad moment. I hope the people who paid tickets get refunds. If not, there's going to be riots. But let's move on. It was Bat Appreciation Day this week, where we appreciate Batman and in his finest and in his glory. So obviously, we're going to rank the best live action Batman films, starting with The Dark Knight at number 1. Obviously, it was going to be The Dark Knight, but number 2 is going to be Batman 1989. My favorite edition of the Joker. Well, not my favorite edition. My second favorite. It's great. Great movie. Love it. Next one. Batman Begins. Great movie. Oh, love it. Next one. Batman Returns. 1992. Oh my goodness gracious me. I love this movie. Just wait until we get to the bad ones. So we're going to pump through this thing real quick. Next one will be The Dark Knight Rises. Next one, Batman vs. Superman. I was so excited for that movie, and I've told you this last week. I have a cushion that I made with Batman vs. Superman of it. I was so excited for this movie. Let's move on. Batman the movie, 1966. Absolutely amazing. I love it. I actually watched the Batman 1943 and 1949 movies. Those ones are better than the ones that we're going to get to after this. Now, let's get into the bad ones. Batman and Robin. Yeah. Not much to say about that except for it sucks. And then, when you think we couldn't get any worse than this, we had to go to a few years earlier than that. Batman Forever. But wait. When we thought we couldn't get worse than Batman and Robin and Batman Forever, Joss Whedon, you cotton-headed ninny-muggins, brought us Justice League. And you stole it from our king. And I probably shouldn't say that because I'm just really fired up right now. You stole it from us, I just don't even want to say Zack Snyder. Let's move on. Hugh Jackman went on an interview this week where he talked about possibly coming in to play Wolverine in the MCU. He said, it was the right time for me to leave. Somebody else will pick it up and run with it. And what the caption here says, even the X-Men joining the MCU won't entice Hugh Jackman into playing Wolverine again. Which is fair enough. He's 50 years old. He needs to live his life. Let him act in his own things. Doesn't need to be dragged onto this character like Robert Downey Jr. But yeah, it's gonna be hard to replace him. Everyone's always going to compare him to Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman's performance is just brilliant. He's the perfect enticement of the character, even though if you read the comics, he's nothing like the character. The character is short, hairy, actually looks like a Wolverine, while Hugh Jackman's tall, hairy. Let's move on. Kenji Fujiwara died at 55. The Japanese actor known for his iconic roles in Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy, Full Metal Alchemist, Attack on Titan, Crayon-Shi-Chan, and the Japanese dub of Tony Stark in the MCU, and Joker in The Dark Knight, has died of cancer. My condolences to his family, and we'll move on. Here's some good news about movies that still have yet to be delayed. Tenet comes out July 17th. Bill and Ted comes out August 21. Monster Hunter comes out September 4th. Without Remorse comes out September 18th. Last Night in Soho comes out September 25. Halloween Kills comes out October 16th. Red Noise comes out November 13th. Godzilla vs. Kong comes out November 20th. West Side Story comes out December 18th. Coming to America comes out December 18th. Dune comes out 2018th. And Tomorrow War comes out comes out Christmas Day. I'm actually going to search this up, Tomorrow War, because I wonder if this is like a sequel to Tomorrow When the War Began. Tomorrow War. Come on, Tomorrow War. Let's take a look. The Tomorrow War. A man is drafted to a fight in a war where the fate of humanity relies in his ability to confront the past. Oh gosh, this is one of those movies. My opinion, don't see this movie. You can already tell what it's going to be. It's going to be a cheesy action movie. Let's move on. Mark Ruffalo has an idea for a Hulk movie. Let's listen to what Mark Ruffalo has to say. Ruffalo's idea for a solo Hulk movie would tell the story of what happened to Bruce Banner in between the MCU films. It would be interesting to fill the gaps. That is a quote from him. We've said this before, and I said this when I had Sam... Oh, voice crack. Get back inside of me. You're not coming out again. We said this before about this guy, Mark Ruffalo. He would not be able to hold a Hulk movie by himself. He's a great side character. He's not. It wouldn't be a good main character. And we'll leave it at that. Steven Spielberg saved Babu Frank's life. Babu Frank was the cute little guy from Rise of Skywalker, and it says here, I believe JJ's screenplay JJ screened the movie for Steven Spielberg, and at the end, Steven Spielberg said, "What happened to Babu?" Everyone thought, "Oh my god, what did happen to Babu?" I'm just gonna move on because I don't even know where that was going, and it seems like you'd have to be there to understand, and I wasn't there. Mandalorian documentary is coming to Disney Plus. Disney Plus Gallery, The Mandalorian, will be an 8-episode series including interviews and around-the-table discussions and never-before-seen footage behind the scenes hosted by Jon Favreau. The series premieres on May the 4th with another new episode every Friday. I am excited! I am very excited for this because I love The Mandalorian! It is one of the best TV shows I have ever watched in my entire life, and I'm just excited to see this behind the scenes. Definitely go check it out when it comes out. Let's move on. Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka casting is not yet confirmed, although Dawson went on to say when it happened, she has only the fans to thank, 1,001% because of the fans. Now, I said this before when the stuff came out where she was like, she's confirmed, she's gonna play Ahsoka. I was like, she's the perfect casting. But the fact that she said it wasn't confirmed means she's lying. No, she's probably telling the truth. It's probably just fan speculation, which is not gonna happen. But nonetheless, if they bring Ahsoka into season 2 of The Mandalorian, I wouldn't complain. But I'm just excited. Let's move on. We're going to move on to Bad Times Call for Bad Movies, where I watched the American Pie movies this week. I know, a rumble and a groan. I had finished that 70s show. I really just needed something to watch that wasn't serious or wasn't just a sitcom-y comedy. So I was like, hey, why don't I watch American Pie since that got added to Netflix? I've watched all the American Pies before, but not like this. Watching them in a row is pure torture. So let's get into them. American Pie 1. Probably the only really good one out of all of them. Now, this is a PG rated podcast. I will not go into what this movie, what the plot and the synopsis of this movie is, or any of the movies, matter of fact. I will just say if it's good or not, if you should watch it. But if you are under the age of 15 years old or 18 plus in some of these movies, do not go and watch this movie unless this movie series unless you think you are fully capable of absorbing the stuff that they say, the stuff that they do, the amount of language and graphic stuff that they do in this movie. Definitely, if you feel ready for that, definitely go watch it. Go watch some of the movies. but we're just going to get into what I think of them. So, American Pie 1. I think this is a very funny movie. The jokes really land. I think the cast in this was really, really well thought out, very, very well done. They definitely did their job, and it's definitely a cult classic. I would rate this probably a probably an 8 out of 10. Let's move on to American Pie 2. It was just American Pie 1 without most of the humor. Yeah, it's definitely not going to go up there with the best sequels of all time, but at least it didn't track too far away from the original plot and synopsis of the first American Pie. Kind of just had the same thing, same idea. I would rate this probably a 5 out of 10. And let's move on to the next things. Now, American Pie gets a bit weird. It gets a bit weird with their movies because I think obviously I wouldn't know this until like I actually do research about American Pie, which I didn't for this video because I for this podcast, sorry. But I didn't go into very much like detail of my research just to see like what they did, but actually no, let's not get into that yet because there was another movie that came just before this part that I'm about to talk to you about. So the next movie, so they had American Pie 1, American Pie 2, then they had American Wedding, which was about one of the characters getting married. I think that this one was better than the second one, honestly, because it brought back 4 out of the 5 main characters from the last movies. It showed how 3 of the 4 really matured and how they had that one friend that's just an idiot and just continually messes up and is just stupid. And I think they really did this very well. And I think this one is probably one of the best out of all the series. Keep in mind, this series is not very good. It's one of those cheaply made. This one was actually seemed like it had a budget in it, but this series is a very cheaply made romantic comedy where they just throw in random stuff, swear words, jokes, nudity, graphic, disgusting stuff, really, really, really bad stuff, just for a cheap laugh and just for a cheap giggle to make money. Now, this is where this really, really gets messed up and weird. Well, not messed up and weird. This is where they kind of like drifted away. So they had the original 3, they had the original trilogy, and then they're like, well, we want to make another movie. We want to make these movies, but I don't think any of the original cast is like, yeah, we don't want to do this anymore. We don't want to come back for like 4 movies and just have this random plot thing. Except for one guy. One guy is in every single one of these movies, but they drifted off, and then pretty much the whole series of American Pie, they talked about band camp. It's actually one of the most quotable lines from the first movie. This one time at band camp, I went and fought a bear or something like that, but I'm just being very PG about it. But they made a movie called American Pie Presents Band Camp. Now, this movie is not good. It's not good. Not good in the slightest. It's very, very, very stupid. Very not funny. Definitely very cheap. The budget was $10 million. It was just really, really cheap. But so this is what they did. They had got 2 people from the original movie. So they had got Eugene Levy and Chris Owen. Chris Owen played Chuck Sherman, and Eugene Levy played Mr. Levinstein. And what they did was that they decided, let's get that guy from that who swears a lot in the other ones and is very, very inappropriate, but the guy who brings the most laughs. Let's bring his like younger brother who was in like the first 2 movies that was just there. What if he grows up and goes to band camp? So that's where this movie gets that plot from. Then go, hey, why don't we do that? And it's probably it takes it pretty much the whole point of the movie. Like it's a cash grab. All of these American Pie movies I'm going to talk about in a minute are all classified as cash grabs because they just take the name of American Pie and about how this movie series actually made money and actually made movies that people care. Like, but not when I mean care about, I don't mean people like, why would you do this to me? I mean like they were like, oh, like we put in the budget for this movie. We had producers who were here who spent time, and cinematographers and people who scored the music in the background, and actors who actually gave a lot of energy into the performance. To keep in mind that like this whole movie series is just pretty stupid in itself, but they decided, hey, let's do this and make money, because obviously these 3 movies before them made money. They made money for us, but let's not bring back anyone who actually made money. Let's keep doing this. And then when we thought it couldn't get any worse, they brought out American Pie Presents The Naked Mile. Okay, I'm going to explain this one real quick, because that's pretty, you wouldn't be able to understand if you know. So pretty much the whole plot of this thing was these high school guys decide, hey, we want girls, and then they're like, no, you don't get girls, and then they're like, oh, well, my cousin's in charge of a frat house. Let's go hang out with him. And he's like, oh, we always have a thing that goes on every year where we run a mile naked. I was like, I was sitting there watching this movie, and I was like, this is really weird and really stupid. Why would you do this? This seems really stupid. But the way that they brought in Eugene Levy, who played Mr. Levinstein, the way that they brought him in was they were like, pretty much the whole time of these movies, like in band camp, they brought him in saying that he was taking over for his daughter-in-law, and he was taking over as the person in band camp. But in this movie, he's like, oh, he's the one who created the Naked Mile, and so he's in there. I'm like, this is really weird. Like, if you watch the first few American Pies, he's like the number one dad. He's like, he loves his son, he loves his family, he wouldn't do anything bad to them in the slightest. He loves them too much. But they made him seem like he's just really weird guy who decided, hey, for charity, why don't we run every male and female on campus run around naked? It's like a 14-year-old, a prepubescent 14-year-old would think of that and be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's move on to the sequel to that, American Pie Beta House. It says that in the title. It says it in the title that it's got to be bad. If you make a movie that has any sort of frat in there, it's going to be bad. I think the only good frat movie is Bad Neighbors, but that's because they actually had a budget and they had actors who sort of kind of cared in what they were making. Seth Rogen, Zac Efron. And it was just a funny experience. Like, you sit there and you watch it and you're like, oh, these guys actually put in effort. The budget that they put in this movie was actually funny. Not talking about number 2, which is actually crap, and we'll probably do that in a later time. But let's move on to the second last movie that they made. American Pie Book of Love. Now, honestly, I'm being honest now, I think I enjoyed this one the most. Just because, like, the actors that they brought in clearly, like, didn't really care. They didn't put anything in the performances. But, like, the whole movie, rather than it being centered around, like, the one goal of, like, trying to get as many people naked in a room and do some really bad, really naughty and bad stuff that's really bad for, like, a movie series, they were pretty, like, it's pretty toned down, this movie. It was like, this guy wanted to date this girl, and he, like, they liked each other. It was really quite fun, with that American Pie sweetness that they add, artificial sweetener, because it's not real sweetness that they add into all their movies. It had that in there, but I actually really enjoyed this one. And now we move on to the last one, American Pie Reunion. Now, they brought back all of the actors from the original. This one, they actually put effort into this one. They actually spent, like, their time perfecting and making this movie as good as it could be. And so, like, they actually made this thing somewhat good and somewhat believable. And the synopsis of this movie is: a group of friends visit their hometown after a decade while they reminisce over their high school life and await the upcoming reunion after a high school senior is on the lookout for the perfect date. Like, it actually seemed like a good plot for a movie. Like, a whole bunch of like people who graduated come back and they go to their high school reunion. Like, and this movie was actually somewhat good. It was very, very funny, very stupid. Definitely worth the watch. But nonetheless, let's move on to your questions. For you guys' like privacy and all that, I will not say the names. I will just answer the questions. Let's go with our first question. What is your favorite movie / TV show? My favorite movie of all time is Pulp Fiction. Hands down. Quentin Tarantino, if you're listening to this, which you probably know, I love your movies. I think that you're just a brilliant director. Like, obviously, Zack Snyder's up there with, like, someone who I respect and I love, but I haven't seen a director who makes consistently good movies. Oh my gosh. But nonetheless, if you watch Pulp Fiction, it's just a classic. It's just a classic movie. Has some Quentin Tarantino love in there, and it's just a great movie. I love the whole idea of like mismatching all of the stuff into different places in the film. Oh. I'm lying down while doing this, so I'm just going to sit up because this is not very comfortable and my nose is like clogging up. But let's move on. Next person. Top 5 movies for you. Number 1 is Pulp Fiction. I just said that before. Number one's Pulp Fiction. Number 2 is Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump is just a great movie. I love it. Love it to bits. Think it's a great movie. Number 3 is Rocky 6. Rocky Balboa. Oh my goodness gracious me. If you guys like even sit down and just watch the entire Rocky series, including the Creeds, the one that will stand out to you is either number 1 or number 6. Just because like number 5 was just such a bad movie that like number 6 just like brought everything back. It was such a great movie. Let's move on. Number 4, I'd probably say Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. Reason why, and people, when you see this, you'll be like, what the heck? Why would you put that on your list? Well, it's my list, and I'm able to do whatever the heck I want. Well, I watched this movie when I was like younger. Obviously, it's not a very appropriate movie for someone when you're younger. But it's just such a funny movie. I love the jokes they had, and like the floating satellite was just the funny. Oh no, it was a floating rocket ship. It was just the funniest thing when they just kept cutting through. Oh, definitely a funny movie. Thank you, Mike Myers, for bringing that. And then number 5 would have to be Spider-Man 2. Hands down. Sam Raimi, you are a genius. You are a genius director, and I love your work. Let's move on. Fave genre. Even though those movies in there kind of have like the same sort of like genre in there, comedy, action, violence, whatever, all that sort of is in there. My favorite genre, surprisingly, is slasher horror. I know, weird. I love slasher horrors, even though there are hardly any good ones. Like, I think the only good ones is the first 2 Friday the 13th, Halloween 1, maybe Halloween 2. I did like the Rob Zombie Halloweens. I did think he did take things a little too far, but I feel like that's the character of Michael Myers. Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. I just love those movies, and I think that it's like a great idea, and I love those movies. I'm really excited for the next Halloween because Halloween is great. Let's move on. Most overrated TV show. Hands down, Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is the most overrated TV show of all time. Oh my gosh, this is so good. Game of Thrones, I just love binge watching the entire series of Game of Thrones. It's such a great show. Oh my gosh, it is the most overrated piece of crap I have ever watched in my entire life. I tried to watch it and I was just like, what the heck is going on here? I just couldn't believe it. I'm getting very fired up right here, but I just don't like this show. I think it's just not a good show. It's not a very, everyone's like, oh my, I love this show. I sit here and watch it, HBO. It's so good. It is not good. It's so overrated. And I always see stuff on Instagram that's like, hey, I belong to the 1% that have not watched Game of Thrones. Well, good for you. I really feel like that is a terrible statistic because there's 1% of there's probably more than 1% of children in the world that have never seen Game of Thrones. If you said like 1% of America, I'd be like, that's probably wrong, but it's more closer to right. But 1% of the world is definitely not. Thank you for listening to my rant, and thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Let's move on. Most underrated show. Oh. Give me a second to think about this one. I'd probably say most underrated show is DC's Legends of Tomorrow. I know, weird. I love DC's Legends of Tomorrow. I sit there and watch it once a week when they made episodes. Obviously, I probably would skip the first 2 seasons of Legends of Tomorrow. There's no point. Because the first season they took them, it's like Community, but Community's not underrated. Community is a great show, but it takes the same idea where Community was like the first season was like really serious. It took itself like a real TV show, and that's what DC Legends of Tomorrow did. First season was really serious, took the show really seriously. Second season they took themselves like seriously again. But when it gets to the third season, that's when the juiciness comes. That's where the fun comes in. And they just have like the weirdest episodes. Like they had a puppet episode. They had like an episode where like they had the Charlie's Angels. Like they have John Constantine in the show, and he's so funny. They have like a shapeshifter. It's such a funny show, but like no one talks about it. I think it's great. Let's move on. Fave director. Okay, this is coming. Everyone, my favorite director is Quentin Tarantino. I know, shocker. It's not Zack Snyder, obviously. Oh, you talk about Zack Snyder all the time. You talk about Snyder guy. I just like Batman vs Superman, and I think that the rap that he got for Batman vs Superman was undeserved. But if you're talking about like a director who has made movies that I can be like, these are the greatest of all time, I would love these movies, I will sit there and watch them, it's Quentin Tarantino, hands down. He's a great director and I love it. Let's move on. Scariest movie you have ever seen. The scariest movie I've ever seen is a movie called Eden's Lake. Eden's Lake. It stars Michael Fassbender. And the reason why this movie scared me was because the way that they directed it. I won a whole bunch of awards, not an Oscar, but it won a whole bunch of awards because like the whole plot and the synopsis of the movie. Like, why don't we just Google it? Because rather than me explaining it to you, why don't we just Google it? Okay. Oh, come on. Eden's Lake. Eden's Lake. Let's read the synopsis. Jenny, a teacher, and her boyfriend Steve head to a lake to spend a peaceful weekend. However, a group of undisciplined teenagers irk them with continuous pranks and ruin their weekend. Now, this is very, very, very bleak. And, very, not trying to spoil the movie and whatnot. But when they mean by pranks and whatnot, it means that they pranked them, and then when they were trying to throw knives at them, and were edging them on, and their dog attacked them, the dog landed on car keys that he had in his pocket, and the dog accidentally died. And so the kids tracked them down and tortured her boyfriend, really brutally tortured him, and and they actually killed him. They killed him, And this girl who's like literally the most defenseless woman in the world, is like trying to run away from these kids who are trying to kill her. And then this little boy, such a sad scene. He like is trying to help this woman. He's trying to help this woman, but because she's seen him with this group of maniac teens, they are like coming for him, and coming for her. And she turns around and stabs him. It's a really, really sad scene because she's like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And then they find him. And then they all track her down. They're in like a small town too. And she's like running away and she finds civilization. And she goes in there and it looks like she's gonna be okay. She's gonna be fine. She's gonna be like, okay, we are a hero of this story. Even though she's not really a hero because she murdered a child. She's going to be okay. But the family that she had went to was that child's mother and father and their whole family. Plot twist. And she's like, I need help. These kids are trying to kill me. They're like, okay, we'll call the police. And then the kids come in and the kids are like, that's the woman who killed this guy. And then she's like running into the bathroom and then her parents kill her. It's honestly like the most stressful I've ever been in a movie. Like ever watching a movie. Because I was just like, this woman like doesn't know what she's doing. She's really scared and she never meant to make harm, but this is what had happened. Alright, let's move on. Least liked movie series. Alright, give me a second to think about this. The least liked movie series I've ever seen. This isn't like the least liked movie. This is the least liked series. I probably would have to say, and this is pretty a cop-out answer, but it's Sharknado. Hands down. Sharknado. You watch one of them and you're like, what the heck is this? And there's like 6 of them. Look at this. Like, Sharknado. How many are there? Let's do a quick Google search. Sharknado 1. Sharknado 2. Sharknado 3. Sharknado The Fourth Awakens. Sharknado 5. Sharknado... What is this one? Sharknado 6. It's About Time. What the heck? Terrible movie series. Terrible sharks. This ruins the idea of horror. And it makes me upset. Terrible movie series. Don't watch any of them because even for a laugh, you actually want to gouge your eyes out after watching it. They brought like CGI of sharks from like Shark Boy and Lava Girl, which is nothing to boast about, and brought them into this terrible movie series. Definitely bad. Let's move on. Worst movie ever made. Worst movie ever made. Now, there's lots of categories. You could be like worst movie ever made, but they had like a $1 million budget and they had really nothing to do with it. Or we could go worst movie made where they had the budget to do something like that. And if that was the question, it would be Justice League. They had like a $240 million budget, 2 directors, 2 very successful screenwriters, and they couldn't pull a good movie out of that. They couldn't pull it. They couldn't pull it out. So that's probably the worst movie ever made. One actor that you hate. One actor that you hate. Oh, there's a few. There is a few. I'd probably say, I think this is probably just my That 70s Show coming into me. But Topher Grace. Mostly because of Spider-Man 3. But when the question says hate. Why is my voice crack? I don't know. Like when it says hate, like I don't hate any actors. I dislike actors. I think that some actors are better than others, but I believe that he, like Topher Grace, for example, one who I would say I don't really like, is because like, first of all, he played Venom and like completely, like his performance kind of ruined the movie. But then, like, obviously I'd be like, you're biased and whatnot. You're like saying this and you're saying that. You're like, be honest. And I'm like, I am being honest because I watch other movies. I watched Predator. Not Predator 1980, Predator the 2010 movie. And and like that 70s show where he just frustrates me. Like he's. Let's move on. Opinions on sitcoms. Sitcoms are of the devil. They really are. There are some good sitcoms. But the thing is with sitcoms is that when you take them for too long, they will get bad. They'll get bad really quick. That 70s show was pretty mediocre at the start. Pretty much mediocre the entire way. That's not that 70s show. Friends was pretty good most of the way, but then like it kind of dropped off near the end. Seinfeld, same idea. It's just that sort of idea of sitcoms. They're just not very good. Best movie ever made. Now this question isn't like for me isn't like best movie ever made. It's not like what my opinion is. Like obviously this is my opinion. It is opinionated, but it's not like what happened when I said the worst movie ever. It has to do with like the budget and what they did with the budget and the director and what they did with the director and what they did with the cinematography and whatnot. And what I would have to say, like the most beautiful movie, like the most beautiful depiction of a movie, in my opinion, like a best movie ever made with cinematography, actors, director, ever, would have to be a tie between Mad Max Fury Road and Blade Runner 2049. Those two are the most beautiful, well-made movies I have ever watched in my entire life. And if you don't agree, fight me on it, honestly. Very, very, very good movies. Let's move on. Favorite movies of all times and why? We kind of did this. We kind of did this already, but rather than doing like a top 5, I'm just gonna talk about some other movies that I like. Other movies that I like are The Waterboy. The Waterboy by Adam Sandler. Now Adam Sandler's very like on the nose when it comes to comedy. Like some of his stuff are hilarious. Wedding Singer, 51st Dates, Waterboy. But some of his other stuff is really bad. But nonetheless, Waterboy is probably one of the funniest movies I've ever watched my entire life. Honest to God. But I love that movie and I think it's great. And another like movie I'll talk about two more. Another movie that I really like is Avengers Endgame. Obviously, it's the best depiction of that scenario ever. Like obviously there's the Avengers, but I feel like the Avengers was a bit overrated. But they brought these characters from so many different movie franchises. Obviously they did that in Infinity War, but they did it better in Endgame. Endgame is just such a great movie, and like I went to go see it when I was up when I went on a holiday. I purposely put time out of my day to go see the movie a day before it came out. And I was gobsmacked at how great it was. Gobsmacked. And that's what I'm going to use for it. Let's move on. What is a movie that should have won an Oscar? What is a movie that should have won an Oscar? Honestly, first of all, I would have to search up. Let's look at a list. Okay. Movies that should have won Oscars. Let's take a look. And if I've seen them, I'll talk about them. And then pretty much I'm gonna look through this quickly and just see. Oh, hands down, straight up. Didn't even need to look at anything else. Oh my gosh, 2 of the ones on this list. 2 of them. 2. What are you doing, Academy Awards? Mad Max Fury Road didn't win a single Oscar? Nothing? No, I got to do this. Mad Max Fury Road. Academy Award for Best Production Design. Oh my gosh. Okay. It did win an Oscar. It won the Academy Award for Best Production Design. I think what the website was talking about was movies that should have won Best Movies of all time. Best production design, 100%. 100%. But let's look at the other one, which was Pulp Fiction. Now, I talked about this one before. This is my favorite movie of all time. I think it's one of the most well-made movies of all time. Let's look. Awards. Academy Award for Best... Oh, that website can't be trusted. Best Original Screenplay. But it should have won the Oscar for Best Movie. That's what I'm going to leave it on. Should have won the Oscar for Best Movie. And the other end of this question is, what is the biggest Oscar rob? Let's search up Oscar robs. Oscar robs. Wait. Oscars robs. Okay, I should probably just search up Academy Award. Academy Award robs. Why does this happen? You search up like Academy Award robs and it just comes up with Rob Lowe steals Academy Award. Let's take a look at this. Right. That one I have not seen, so I have no opinion on. That one I have no opinion on. Huh. What about that? Obviously you can't see my screen, so I'm just gonna sit down and just scroll through this for a second. And we're back. And I think I found one. I think I found a rob that I completely and utterly agree with. Even though I love these three movies to death, on here it says Forrest Gump beat Pulp Fiction and Shawshank Redemption for Best Picture in 1995. I love those movies to death. I love them all. They're all great. Give them all the Oscar. But if I had to choose between the three, I would choose Pulp Fiction or Shawshank against Forrest Gump. Honestly, I love Forrest Gump. It's my second favorite movie of all time, but it's not better than Shawshank, and it's not better than Pulp Fiction. And that's the list. That's all of our questions. Now, I just want to thank you all for joining me on the podcast. Check out next week's episode, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.